Power doesn't appear in your life one day like luck. It's built deliberately by someone who decides they'll no longer live like everyone else. Most people wait for a moment, an opportunity, a person to notice them. But the people who rise from nothing, those who actually gain power from scratch, don't wait for permission. They begin by changing how they see the world and how the world sees them. That's where it starts, not with money or connections or luck, with perception. The powerless live as though life is something happening to them. They react, they complain, they think power belongs to others. And so every time they act, it's from weakness. They justify, they defend, they ask. The powerful, on the other hand, understand something simple. If the world runs on influence, then control begins with how you are perceived. Machiavelli knew this. He didn't tell rulers to be good. He told them to be effective. And effectiveness begins the moment you stop wanting to be understood and start wanting to be feared, respected, or obeyed. But how does someone with no status, no wealth, no authority actually build power? The answer isn't in doing more. It's in becoming strategic. Power is not about force. It's about leverage. It's about understanding people's hidden motives and using that knowledge to build advantage piece by piece. Think of it like constructing invisible armor layer by layer. You turn yourself into someone the world can't easily move. The first truth you must accept is that power rewards distance. When you appear too available, too eager, or too visible, people subconsciously see you as someone to use, not respect. To rise from nothing, you must master the art of restraint. Don't be everywhere. Don't speak too quickly. Don't react instantly. Silence creates curiosity, and curiosity breeds importance. When you hold back your presence, people fill in the blanks with their imagination, and imagination is far more powerful than reality. You might say, but won't people forget about me if I stay silent? No, they'll wonder. They'll think. They'll imagine you're up to something, and that imagination builds reputation faster than words ever could. Every powerful person understands this balance. Visibility without accessibility. You must be seen but not touched, known but not fully understood. That's how you begin to separate yourself from the masses. Now here's where most fail. They think power is about acting superior, but superiority that must be performed is weakness in disguise. You don't show power, you radiate it. The way you move, speak, pause, and decide. It's subtle, but it's the difference between someone who demands attention and someone who commands it without asking. The first screams insecurity. The second exudes control. You have to condition your mind to stop chasing validation. Every time you need someone's approval, you surrender authority over your own narrative. The person you seek validation from becomes the one defining your worth, and you cannot gain power while being defined by others. The cure is indifference, not coldness, but detachment. You must learn to be comfortable being misunderstood, criticized, or ignored. Power is born when you can hold your ground in silence while others crumble trying to explain themselves. But this detachment doesn't mean isolation. It means selective engagement. You must learn to read people like chess pieces. Every person around you either increases or decreases your leverage. Observe who drains your focus and who multiplies it, who talks too much and who listens too carefully, who flatters you and who challenges you. Because when you start from zero, your environment is your strategy. You can't control everything, but you can control who has access to you. And here's a Machiavellian principle rarely talked about. Never compete where others are strong. Compete where they are comfortable. The most effective way to rise is not to directly oppose power, but to move through spaces others underestimate. If everyone's trying to be loud, become the quiet observer who sees what they don't. If everyone's trying to lead, become the one they quietly depend on. If everyone's trying to be loved, become the one they need. That's how power grows unnoticed until it's too late to stop. Let's break that down. Say you're in a room full of ambitious people all trying to stand out. You'd think blending in would make you invisible, but it does the opposite. When everyone's shouting, silence becomes magnetic. People start to look at you differently. They wonder why you're so calm, why you're not desperate for approval, why you don't seem affected by the same chaos. That subtle psychological shift makes them assign more value to you than you've earned. And that's the first true step from nothing to something. When people decide you must be important, even before you've proven it. This brings us to the next principle. Never reveal your full capacity early. Power accumulates when people underestimate you. You must resist the urge to prove yourself too soon. The weak expose their strengths too quickly because they crave recognition. The powerful reveal theirs only when it strategically shifts the balance. Until then, they operate from the shadows, building advantage quietly. Machiavelli would say, "It's not enough to appear capable. You must also appear harmless until it's too late." Think of it like a weapon hidden under calm. The moment you display all your weapons, others prepare their defenses. But when they believe you have none, they relax. And that's when you win. Understand something crucial. Power doesn't always grow in public. It often grows in obscurity and silence while no one's watching. That's where reputations are built, where decisions are studied, where people's patterns are decoded. Power begins as observation. You can't influence what you don't understand. So before trying to control others, study them. Watch how they react to praise, how they behave when ignored, how they change when envied. Everyone reveals their blueprint. You just have to stay quiet long enough to see it. Once you start to notice patterns, you gain the most dangerous advantage, predictability. And predictability allows you to plan. Most people act impulsively, driven by emotion. But Theon, who can predict others' moves, no longer needs to fight fair. He can make others fight themselves. He can create conditions where others' strengths become their weaknesses. That's strategy, not force. But here's the paradox. You cannot gain power without risk. To start from scratch means you'll often face humiliation, dismissal, or isolation. The difference between those who rise and those who don't is endurance. When the world ignores you, it's testing your capacity for stillness. When no one believes in you, it's checking whether you need external permission to continue. Most people collapse under invisibility. But if you can persist unseen, something remarkable happens. You become immune to discouragement, and that's when you start becoming dangerous. Think of the powerless as addicted to reaction. Every insult triggers them. Every rejection disorients them. They depend on validation to breathe. You, however, must operate differently. You must learn to weaponize your composure. Every time you don't react, you take control, because silence is not weakness, it's calculation. When you don't respond immediately, you make others uncertain. And uncertainty is the root of influence. Every great manipulator, strategist, and leader understood this. The most powerful position in any interaction is not the one who speaks, but the one who makes others speak first. Because the one who speaks first reveals intent, emotions, and weaknesses. The one who listens builds the map of power. So begin to train yourself to delay reactions by a few seconds longer than feels natural. That pause alone will make people sense authority. And remember, Machiavelli didn't teach power as morality. He taught it as physics. It's neither good nor bad. It simply follows certain laws. You can ignore them and be controlled by others, or you can learn them and control the game yourself. And the first law is this: never appear desperate for control. Power belongs to those who can walk away from it. That's where you start from. Internal control. Before you command others, you must master yourself. The one who can't control his emotions, time, or focus can never control anything outside himself. Self-discipline isn't about routines, it's about restraint. Knowing when not to act. Knowing when not to speak. Knowing when to appear indifferent even when you're watching everything. Because every time you reveal urgency, you teach others how to manipulate you. They'll dangle opportunities, compliments, threats, anything to trigger reaction. But when you can't be baited, you become unreadable, and unreadable people terrify the world. They can't be predicted, persuaded, or controlled. That's where real power begins, from psychological opacity. The less people can define you, the more they project power onto you. Power then is not a destination, it's a discipline. It's not about being in charge of others, but in charge of yourself in every situation. And once you master that, external power follows naturally, because the world instinctively bows to those who don't flinch, don't beg, and don't explain. They're the ones others start to orbit around without realizing they've already surrendered influence. The path from nothing to power is slow, invisible, and deeply psychological. But once you begin it, the world will never see you the same way again. Because power doesn't just change your position, it changes your aura. And once that aura builds, the game tilts permanently in your favor. The most overlooked truth about power is that it never begins externally. It always starts as a private rebellion inside you, a quiet decision that you will no longer be ruled by emotion, circumstance, or approval. Every external form of control you see, political, social, or psychological, is built on one inner ability: the ability to stay composed when others can't. And this is where almost everyone fails. Most people think power is about dominance, but true power is about containment. Can you hold your emotions when provoked? Can you remain still when someone's trying to pull a reaction out of you? Can you make others feel uncertain, even when you're unsure yourself? The person who can do that becomes the gravitational center in any situation. They draw control to themselves without ever having to seize it. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He knew that control wasn't just about intelligence. It was about temperament. He wrote that fortune favors those who can bend with the storm, rather than stand rigid against it. Power in this sense isn't about being unbreakable. It's about being unreadable. When no one can predict your next move, they can't contain you. And once people can't contain you, they start to orbit you. Let's say you're in a room with someone who challenges you, subtly, trying to dominate the conversation. You can respond by matching their energy, raising your voice, pushing back, showing them you won't be disrespected. That's the instinctive emotional response. For the Machiavellian move, you lower your tone. You pause. You let silence weigh on them until they start talking more to fill it, because when they talk more, they reveal more. And while they think they're winning the moment, you're quietly gathering control of the entire dynamic. This is what it means to gain power from scratch. It's not about grand gestures. It's about small psychological wins that build over time. You begin to notice that the world bends subtly toward those who don't flinch. People start seeking your opinion. They hesitate before speaking against you. And none of this happens because you demanded respect. It happens because you mastered the first step, self-command. But there's another layer to this that most ignore, and it's this. To gain power, you must first abandon fairness. Not in a moral sense, but in a strategic one. The world is not balanced. It never has been. And waiting for fairness is the fastest way to stay powerless. You don't win by demanding equality. You win by creating leverage. That leverage doesn't have to be money or influence. It can be information, emotional detachment, timing, or even perception. For example, most people expose their intentions too early. They tell others exactly what they want, what they plan to do, what their goals are, and in doing so, they hand over leverage. Because once someone knows what you want, they can manipulate it. They can delay it, promise it, or threaten it. But if you can make your intentions invisible, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability forces others to adapt around you. That's the essence of silent power. Controlling the pace without appearing to control it. Machiavelli's advice wasn't to dominate through strength but through timing. He observed that most people rush. They act before the situation has ripened. Power comes from waiting until the right moment when others have exhausted their options. That's when a single move can change everything. It's the difference between a fool who reacts and a strategist who responds. Every great move in history, political, social, or personal, began with patience disguised as inaction. And here's something you must internalize if you're starting from zero. Power is not built in front of people. It's built behind closed doors. The most dangerous mistake is to broadcast your progress. Because the moment others know you're rising, they'll instinctively try to limit you. You don't owe the world transparency. You owe yourself momentum. Build in private. Let curiosity do your marketing. Because when they don't know what you're building, they can't prepare for it. The people who start from nothing often think exposure will save them. They chase visibility, followers, recognition. But visibility without leverage is just vulnerability. You're giving everyone a front row seat to your weaknesses. And when you have no power, every weakness is a weapon that can be used against you. Instead, stay low while you build strength. Move like fog, seen but untouchable. Heard but never cornered. By the time they notice your rise, it's too late to stop it. Another truth. Power is not just about what you show. It's about what you withhold. The art of withholding is misunderstood. People think it's manipulation, but it's actually discipline. It's knowing that every truth, emotion, or plan you share comes with a cost. Every word gives others a map to your mind. So learn to keep things unsaid. When people sense mystery around you, they instinctively become careful, and that caution gives you control. You've probably noticed how certain people enter a room and instantly shift its energy. They're not louder. They're not necessarily smarter, but their stillness demands attention. It's the absence of need. Everyone else needs to be liked, needs to be seen, needs to be right. The powerful person doesn't. And that absence of need creates an aura that others can't explain but can feel. Machiavelli would call this the illusion of natural superiority, when others assume your calmness must come from power. It's a psychological mirage that turns perception into influence. But here's where it gets interesting. To maintain that aura, you must learn the art of contradiction. Power thrives on duality. You must be both approachable and intimidating, honest but unpredictable, kind yet capable of cruelty. If you are entirely predictable, you're entirely controllable. But if people can't quite define you, they hesitate. And hesitation is the pause in which power enters. So how do you build this contradiction consciously? You start by refusing to fit the expectations people project onto you. When they think you'll react, don't. When they expect you to explain, stay quiet. When they assume you'll back down, Hold your ground. Every time you defy prediction, you claim psychological space. Over time, people will stop assuming they understand you, and that's when you become untouchable. Think of every interaction as a balance of curiosity and clarity. Give people just enough clarity to trust you, but enough mystery to keep them guessing. It's a dance of light and shadow. Too much light and they stop fearing you. Too much shadow and they stop trusting you. The perfect blend keeps them slightly unsure, and that uncertainty keeps you relevant. This balance is what allows you to scale your influence beyond your actual resources. Even with no power in hand, perception becomes your tool. Act as if you already possess what you're building toward. Speak with certainty even when you're unsure. Walk as though you're expected, not invited, because people subconsciously respond to belief, not truth. Machiavelli knew that people would rather follow the confident fool than the uncertain genius. The world follows conviction, not capability, and when you begin to practice this level of inner control, you'll notice something strange. People start confessing things to you. They'll overshare, seek your approval, ask your advice. That's because power creates psychological gravity. The calm one becomes the confessional of the chaotic. But here's the secret. Never return that vulnerability. Listen, but reveal little. Because the moment you start matching their openness, the gravity collapses. You return to equality. Power is not sustained by equality. It's sustained by imbalance. And remember, the most powerful people don't seek control over others. They simply make others depend on their presence. Dependence is a quieter form of domination. When people need your approval, validation, or alliance, you don't have to command them. They command themselves to please you. That's the final stage of invisible power. When others willingly submit without realizing they're doing it, everything begins internally. The posture of your mind dictates the position you'll hold in the world. If you remain reactive, emotional, and desperate to be seen, you'll always play a follow hours game. But if you can discipline your energy, if you can move slowly, think deeply, and act rarely, power will start forming around you like smoke condensing into form. And once it does, the same people who ignored you will start treating your silence as wisdom, your calmness as confidence, and your detachment as superiority. That's when you'll know the shift has begun. At this stage, something subtle starts to happen. You begin to notice that power isn't just about gaining, it's about not losing. The majority of people lose power faster than they gain it because they can't handle the tension that power creates. The higher you rise, the more people project onto you expectations, envy, admiration, resentment. And if you're not mentally prepared, you'll start trying to please all sides, diluting the very strength that got you noticed. Real power requires a tolerance for being disliked. If you can't stand the weight of other people's disapproval, you'll never be able to stand above them. Machiavelli warned against trying to be beloved and feared at the same time. But what he really meant was this. You cannot serve everyone's perception of you. You must choose, and when in doubt, choose respect. Love is conditional, fragile, emotional. Respect lasts because it's born from consistency and consequence. Be the kind of person whose presence carries consequence, whose absence is felt, and whose words have weight because they are rare. Now here's the trap for those rising from nothing. The moment you start gaining small forms of power, attention, recognition, money, you'll be tempted to showcase it. You'll want to prove you've made it. But that display is exactly what resets the game against you. The second you flex, you trigger competition. Others begin to study you, copy you, plot against you. Power that is displayed too early invites resistance. True power is quiet until it's unchallengeable. Think of it this way. If you're building a fortress, you don't announce it. You build in silence. You reinforce the walls, secure the gates, and only when the structure is complete do you open the doors. By then you're untouchable. The same goes for your rise. People shouldn't know your strategy until it's already too late to stop it. Keep your victories small, uncelebrated, and connected to something larger. Because the less predictable you are, the more dangerous you become. But there's something else. Something most never understand until it's too late. Power isolates. Not because you push people away, but because your perspective changes. You stop seeking comfort in collective opinions. You start seeing how easily people trade their integrity for belonging. You realize that the herd isn't evil. It's just afraid. And fear always resents control. So as you rise, you'll lose company. People will label your detachment as arrogance, your focus as coldness, your independence as ego. And if you're not ready for that solitude, you'll retreat back into the crowd just to feel normal again. That's how power dies. You must learn to turn solitude into a weapon. Silence sharpens your perception. Distance reveals who's loyal. Isolation forces you to rely on your mind rather than validation. It's not comfortable, but neither is power. Comfort is what the powerless trade for safety. Power is what the dangerous goose instead of comfort. Another vital truth. Power cannot coexist with self-pity. The world owes you nothing. Every second you spend resenting what others have is a second you waste not building leverage for yourself. Machiavelli would say that fortune is a woman who must be dominated by boldness, not by bitterness. You can't attract opportunity through envy. You seize it through preparation. So rather than complaining about unfairness, learn to exploit it. Every imbalance is a doorway for strategy. For instance, let's say you're working under someone who undervalues you. Most people either quit impulsively or simmer in resentment. The Machiavellian move is different. You stay quiet, observe their weaknesses, and position yourself so that their downfall elevates you. You don't sabotage, you prepare. When their mistake inevitably arrives, you step in seamlessly, appearing like the only capable replacement. That's not cruelty. That's readiness. The world rewards those who wait for openings, not those who force them. This patience is the dividing line between amateurs and strategists. Amateurs rush to act. Strategists wait to become inevitable. And when you're inevitable, people start aligning with you. Not out of loyalty, but out of calculation. And that's exactly what you want. Machiavelli taught that alliances based on interest are stronger than those based on emotion. Emotions shift, interests endure. When people depend on you for their own advantage, they will protect you as if protecting themselves. So create situations where others' survival depends on your success. That's the highest form of power. When others serve your goals willingly, thinking they're serving their own. But here's the paradox. While you're doing all this, you must appear ordinary. Power that is seen too clearly provokes fear, and fear provokes attack. Blend in. Let people believe they're above you. Let them underestimate you, even mock you. The greater your disguise, the safer your ascent. The serpent doesn't roar. It waits under the grass. The longer it waits, the deadlier it becomes. And beneath all this strategy, remember something crucial. Your greatest weapon is not manipulation, but composure. Power doesn't come from controlling others' emotions. It comes from mastering your own. The world is full of people who know tactics but fail because they can't control their rage, pride, or greed. The one who can sit in discomfort without reacting wins in the long run. Because all manipulation, all politics, all influence, eventually comes down to thing. Who breaks first? You must train yourself not to break. Not under pressure, not under praise, not under loneliness. Each time you resist the urge to prove, explain, or retaliate, you gain invisible strength. Each time you let others act impulsively while you stay calm, you shift the balance in your favor. Over time, people sense that stability. They stop testing you. They start yielding. That's when power becomes effortless. And one day you'll look around and realize something profound. While everyone else was busy fighting for control, you quietly became the one they revolve around. Not because you demanded it, but because you earned it by mastering yourself first. That's how you gain power from scratch. Not by luck, not by birthright, but by precision, patience, and psychological depth. Because in a world where everyone wants to be seen, the one who understands the unseen always wins. Eventually, the pursuit of power becomes less about others and more about awareness. You begin to realize that true control comes from clarity, the ability to see people, motives, and movements exactly as they are without emotional distortion. Most people can't do this. They see others through the filter of hope, fear, or bias. They believe what they want to believe about people, and that's why they keep getting blindsided. The powerful, on the other hand, learn to see reality coldly without flinching. Machiavelli's wisdom lives in this mindset. Never assume loyalty, never overestimate kindness, and never underestimate ambition. People act from self-interest even when they don't realize it. And that's not cynical. That's nature. When you accept this, you stop being surprised by betrayal, and you start planning for it. That shift alone puts you above most. The majority of people are busy reacting to human behavior. You'll be predicting it. There's a kind of detachment that feels unnatural at first. Watching people instead of trusting them. Testing them instead of believing them. Pulling information without revealing emotion. But as you practice it, it becomes instinct. You'll begin to notice the micro-expressions that betray insecurity. The words that reveal hidden motives. The tone shifts that signal fear. Every conversation becomes a scan for patterns, not feelings. And in doing so, you'll start operating from information, not emotion, which is the very definition of advantage. Power doesn't belong to the person who knows the most. It belongs to the one who understands the most, because understanding allows influence. You can't control people you don't understand. You can't anticipate moves you can't see forming. So instead of focusing on being impressive, focus on being observant. Most of your competitors will be too busy trying to be seen. Your edge will come from noticing what they don't. Now there's a danger here. Once you start mastering these subtle forms of control, it's easy to become arrogant. You might start seeing yourself as superior, detached from the emotions that make others weak. That's when you risk collapsing under your own illusion. Machiavelli himself warned that even the most cunning ruler loses everything when blinded by pride. Power demands self-awareness as much as strategy. You must constantly watch your own behavior as closely as you watch others. The moment you think you're untouchable, you've already started falling. Humility in power isn't about appearing humble. It's about remembering that power is fluid. The same crowd that praises you today can destroy you tomorrow. The same allies that helped you rise will abandon you once they find a better deal. That's why your allegiance must always be to stability. Not loyalty, not affection, not even morality, but stability. The question you must ask before every move is simple. Does this make me more stable or more dependent? Any step that increases dependence decreases power. Dependence isn't just financial or political. It's emotional too. When you depend on someone for validation, you hand them psychological leverage. When you depend on routine comfort, you become predictable. When you depend on fear to control others, you create rebellion. Power decays through dependency, which is why the most enduring form of it is self-sufficiency. When you no longer need, you can no longer be controlled. That's when your presence becomes magnetic because others feel that freedom, and they crave it. There's an invisible hierarchy in every group. Most people can sense who's at the top, even if it's never spoken. It's not about titles. It's about energy. The one who seems least affected by external approval always leads. They might not even talk the most, but their restraint sets the tone for everyone else. You'll notice that in arguments, meetings, friendships, the person who can stay calm the longest wins. Not by convincing others, but by making others emotionally exhaust themselves trying to read them. Machiavelli would tell you, never interrupt someone when they're revealing themselves. Most people talk themselves into weakness. They expose secrets, emotions, or intentions without realizing it, just to fill silence. If you can resist the urge to fill that silence too, you'll walk away with everything you need. Their patterns, their fears, their plans, and they'll walk away thinking you're simply a good listener. But power isn't just defense. It's offense too. There will come a point when patience must give way to precision. All your observation, restraint, and timing are useless if you don't strike when the window opens. The trick is to strike only when your move seems like destiny to others, when your rise feels natural, no one resists it. When your success feels earned, no one attacks it. So plan your actions meticulously that when they unfold, people believe it was always meant to happen. And when you do act decisively. Nothing destroys perception faster than hesitation. The powerful aren't always right, but they're always certain. Even a wrong move done confidently creates more authority than endless indecision. The world doesn't reward truth. It rewards conviction. People follow those who seem sure of their direction, even when that direction is unclear. So once you've calculated, don't overthink. Move. Power loves momentum. You'll find that once you begin playing this way, cold, calm, deliberate, others will start reacting to you differently. Some will respect it. Others will fear it. A few will resent it deeply. But that's the nature of rising above the crowd. You stop being relatable. Your existence reminds others of their lack of control. Don't internalize their reactions. They're just emotional responses to the discipline you represent. The moment you start apologizing for being strategic, you lose the advantage. And this brings you to the final truth about gaining power from scratch. It's not about becoming powerful. It's about becoming inevitable. You must transform yourself into someone whose presence demands recognition, whose absence feels like imbalance, and whose moves once made cannot be ignored. That doesn't come from luck or manipulation. It comes from mastering how the game is played. You start with nothing, no status, no voice, no influence. But through silence, awareness, patience, and timing, you begin to change the rules themselves. You learn that power doesn't need validation. It doesn't ask to be acknowledged. It exists quietly until the world has no choice but to submit to it. And when you finally reach that point, you'll understand why Machiavelli's wisdom has lasted centuries. Because power in the end is not about domination. It's about direction. The ability to move through chaos without losing form, to shape reality while others are still reacting to it. That's the real secret of gaining power from scratch. It's not something you seize.